dreamers. But the lawmakers who've spent years fighting to protect the rights of nearly 800,000 dreamers throughout the country. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi joins me now from Capitol Hill. Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Let's start with the Supreme Court. The president has tweeted that he doesn't think the Supreme Court likes him very much. Well, I guess not. Two surprising decisions this week. But after all of these years, the dreamers are safe for now.
Well, it's not about whether the court likes the president. He should know that. It's whether the court likes the Constitution of the United States. And with the LGBTQ ruling the other day, and now with the DACA, clearly this is a victory for the American people. And it isn't about it isn't personal about the president. It's constitutional about our country.
Do you think that there needs to be legislation to protect dreamers? No matter who is elected, that there has to be some permanent fix for these people, because he can change it by executive order if he's reelected.
Well, let's not even entertain that thought. Let's enjoy the moment. We passed the DREAM Act in 2010 in the House and had hoped that it could be passed in the Senate, but it was not. We have now passed it again, and that would include many more people, many more dreamers beyond the DACA category, as well as temporary protected status and some other categories. That is sitting in the Senate. We would hope that Senator McConnell would follow the wishes of the American people. Overwhelmingly, three-quarters of voters support the dreamers. Overwhelmingly, Republicans, Democrats, Independents support the dreamers. 62% of people who support President Trump support the dreamers. It's just the Republicans in the Senate who just have chosen not to see the light. But hopefully this decision will give them some courage.
Madam Speaker, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act on the House side is now, you're saying, going to conference with the Senate. Do you think that there can be a compromise between the Republican Senate position and the position coming out of the House and really get police reform done this summer?
Well, let's just say we always hope there can be a compromise. We always strive for bipartisanship. We have a responsibility to find our common ground. But when we can't find our ground, we must stand our ground, and we must stand our ground to say no chokeholds, no racial profiling, no to no-knock warrants. That list goes on. Maybe there can be some compromise in some of the language and other aspects of the bill. I'll leave that up to Karen Bass, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, chair of the Crime Subcommittee of Judiciary, and to Mr. Nadler, chair of the Judiciary Committee, as to how we go forward. But the American people have spoken in large numbers in protest against the status quo. I hope that the Senate Republicans are listening.
Is there any possible compromise on the issue of qualified immunity for police officers?
Well, that depends. I mean, it's something that we strongly support, the repeal of the qualified immunity. There could be a reform of it. That's a matter of discussion. But you see a lot of the sports figures have now come out in support of the repeal of the qualified immunity. We're very proud of not only Karen Bass, but in the Senate, Senator Harris and Senator Booker helped write this bill, and we'll see how they guide us in terms of how we deal with the Senate on all of this, as well as Chuck Schumer, of course, chair for a long time, a member of the Judiciary Committee in the House and in the Senate.
The president has moved his Tulsa rally from tomorrow to Saturday. It was originally, as you know, on Juneteenth, and he's now tweeting that he made Juneteenth famous by having originally planned that commemoration. His rally on that day. Do you think Juneteenth should be made a national holiday?
It was stunning. The president says that the Supreme Court, like me, I made Juneteenth. This is a person who is ethically unfit, intellectually unprepared, and personally unqualified to be president of the United States, as he sees everything as about him and not about our country. Juneteenth is a very important date for many of us, even before what's his name, ever heard of it. What we're doing here in the Capitol for tomorrow, later today, I have put forth a letter asking the clerk of the House of Representatives, the clerk, to remove the paintings of 4 Confederate soldiers and participants who became Speaker of the House, who were Speaker or became Speaker of the House. We didn't know that until we were taking an appraisal of the statues, and then we found out from the curator that 4 of them had been part of the Confederacy. So later today, those paintings will come down, and that's how we will be observing Juneteenth in the Capitol.
What about the statues? Do you have any way of dealing with that, or does that have to be done by the states?
Well, the states, the statues are there, as you indicate, thank you, representative of the states. I put Robert E. Lee in the crypt when I was Speaker before. And now the public mood and understanding of why this temple of democracy, this capital of the United States, should not have figures there who advocated for something completely different is clear. So Barbara Lee and Benny Thompson, the chair of the Homeland Security Committee, they have legislation to remove the statue of the Confederate participants from the Capitol. I think we think we're up to like 14 or 15 of them doing the research. But imagine they committed treason against the United States of America, and they have statues in the Capitol of the United States. I don't know what will happen in the Senate. Let me ask you about John. They're trying to do something in the Senate in that regard as well. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to ask you about John Bolton's book, because in his book there are new revelations, including that the president at that summit, the G20 summit, asked President Xi of China for help winning him re-election, help in buying soybeans from American farmers to help him win re-election, which would seem to be akin to what he reportedly did with Ukraine. Also, the president not knowing that the United Kingdom is a nuclear power, Bolton saying that Vladimir Putin can play him like a fiddle, the president praising President Xi for concentration camps holding the Muslim Uyghurs. Your reaction to all of this?
Well, let me just say that I said already the president is ethically unfit, intellectually unprepared, and personally unqualified to be president of the United States. And I think that what we're seeing in some of the statements of those who have served the president to see that point confirmed. As far as the book is concerned, the shame on John Bolton for not coming forth during the impeachment. He wants to have a con with the far right by saying, oh, I'm criticizing the Democrats for not going further in the impeachment. But the fact is he refused to receive a subpoena from the House of Representatives. He said he would only receive it from the Senate. Well, he knew the Senate would never issue one. So he chose royalties in his book instead of patriotism to our country, knowing how unfit Donald Trump is to be president of the United States. I don't know if it would make any difference to the Republican senators. I don't know if it would have given him any courage or patriotism to vote differently in terms of impeachment or removal from office. But I think his words would have rung stronger if he had backed them up in the forum when it mattered, instead of at the cash register for his royalties.
House Speaker
and
Nancy
by the way,
Pelosi,
on that subject,
thank you very much.
Thank
yes,
you, my pleasure. Thank you.
Right. Please, no, please proceed.
What I was going to tell you is when when the president was at the G20 at that meeting with President Xi and all of that transpired, I did speak to him on the phone. He called me about some other things. I spoke to him twice, and first time he called, I said, Mr. President, can you say something at the G20 about what's happening in Hong Kong? At that time, all the young people were in the streets and acting for democratic freedoms. And I said, I'm sure you're observing what is happening there. He said, yeah, did you see the size of that crowd?